think smoking always affected my daily life because I was a closet smoker. It really sort of controlled my entire day. My boss is the one that recommended Juul, so I decided to give it a try. You don't get any of the odor of smoking. There's no ash all over your car. I would say give it a try.
Get the flavor and satisfaction of smoking without the mess of cigarette ash or lingering odor. Switch to Juul. Check out JUUL.com/sports. If you don't smoke or vape, don't start.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Caught Offside with Andrew Gunling and JJ Devaney.
Oh, yes! Caught Offside from the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Andrew Gunling and JJ Devaney. What's up, man?
I'm good. I'm refreshed from yet another city bike from Midtown up to the Upper West
so
Side.
This is going to be the new thing that you are just obnoxious about.
Wind in my hair, my thighs pumping like pistons.
Oh.
Is that
just such an annoying image?
It's a bit too sensual for you.
Can we get one of those, maybe like a bike made for two, and we can just like ride around the city together?
A tandem.
Yeah.
We should go to the south of France together and have picnics in the fields.
Can't just do it here?
No.
Impossible.
A tandem in New York City.
Yeah, why not?
No, I'm not having it.
Do you wear a helmet?
I do, because it's the safe thing to do.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Just checking up on you.
Yeah, because I said wind in my hair and you were trying to catch me out.
Yeah, like you're Fabio. It's ridiculous. What a podcast that this is going to be. Oh my, I'm actually really, really excited about this. We're going to talk with Julian Gressel, rising star. I guess some people might say he is already a star.
Two seasons, back-to-back regular seasons in MLS where he's been stellar.
Yeah, for Atlanta United FC, midfielder, won Rookie of the Year last season. He'll join us coming up in just a little bit to talk about Atlanta as they fall just short of the Supporters' Shield, but I don't think that does anything in the way of changing what the expectations are for them for the next couple months or so. So that should be a really fun conversation. So we've got a big mailbag. I saw you working on it before and combing through it.
It's nice. It's a nice mailbag.
What to watch for. And JJ, something I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened 15 years ago this Friday? So November 2nd, 2003, I guess that would have been?
The pilot launched of Arrested Development.
Yes, it did. One of our favorite shows. And so what we're going to do coming up shortly is pay tribute to Arrested Development by taking some of our favorite moments from that show and applying them to modern-day Premier League situations.
Which sounds utterly bizarre, except we have previous in this regard. We took the film The Rock by Nicolas Cage and applied some of Cage's more irritating catchphrases to the Premier League.
Right. You know, like this, for example.
I want to find some rockets.
Or this.
Yeah, okay, that's just about the most awful thing I've ever seen.
And of course this.
The second you don't respect this, it kills you.
I remember the Rockets one, we said, well, that's clearly a team that needs strikers. And we mentioned Southampton. It's good that they've solved that problem.
Yeah, right. So it should be fun. When we did it for The Rock, we did it for absolutely no reason other than I think you and I both happened to be watching it one night and we're like, God, this movie is just the best.
Yeah, and
let's pay tribute to it.
Well, it was more than that. We decided that Nicolas Cage films are so terrible, yet still you'll watch because they're entertaining. And The Rock is that film.
Yeah.
And we said that's the Premier League. It's not the best league in the world, but you'll watch it because of the storylines and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And now this is risky for us.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
I know, because look, I think a lot of our listeners do love Arrested Development.
I have no idea. I'm just going with you, brother.
You have no idea. So you are now pushing the onus completely on me. You are such a slimy weasel.
You know I like the show, but if this fails and the feedback is bad, in our production meeting, I'm going to blame you.
What production meeting?
Well, it's just me and you having a coffee.
Okay.
Maybe even a beer.
But before we get to that, we do want to start with MLS because the regular season is now in the books after a really eventful final day. Look, we're going to have a lot of time, I think, to talk about the clubs that did make it. But I wanted to start with the most notable one that did not.
Shot themselves in the foot.
The LA Galaxy missing out on the postseason it's almost inexplicable. Well, I shouldn't say it's almost inexplicable.
It's not something that happens a lot.
But we see this, I feel like, every year in Decision Day. Who was it last year? Was it San Jose? There was some upset on the final day of a club that was playing for nothing and another one going for a playoff spot. And again, we see it this year. Houston Dynamo are playing for nothing other than just, I guess, taking pride in the role of spoiler.
Yeah, they're professionals.
Well, I'm not saying they're going to lay down and let the Galaxy walk all over them, although it was 2-0, and for LA to take their foot off the gas at that point.
But I watching this game, I thought it's going to take a litany of errors, mistakes, crazy stuff. And that's exactly how it transpired, almost to a T. You have the Quito goal, which is a really good dribble and a great finish. That's an exceptional goal. I'm not sure if the defenders could have gone to block. I get it. And then you're like, okay, 2-1, relax, still in control. You're at home, just take it up a notch. A ball comes into the box, and irony of ironies, it's AJ De La Garza who's about to control it, and he's kung fu kicked by Alessandrini. Both experienced players. Alessandrini should know better than that. Next thing is a penalty, and it was Manatas rolled it home. They get cut open down the right-hand side, and there it is, 3-2. And right at the end, a perfect ball from Alessandrini picks out Sebastian Lletget at the back post. I do not know what he is doing. No idea. He's got Ibrahimovic free and unmarked. All he's got to do is nod it back to him, and he tries to score from an impossible angle and misses. It's like it was a coming together of terrible decisions and bad luck.
Yeah, although even if they had scored there and it ended in a draw, it wouldn't have been enough. They had to win.
But there was a ridiculous amount of overtime. There was at least 8 or 9 minutes. So maybe there was 2 minutes left.
You're right.
And
it could have helped.
Long ball into the box. Ibrahimovic with a volley. We've seen that story before this season.
Yeah, but that Zlatan moment was just not to be had on this final day.
No, he was nowhere in that game.
It's 2 straight seasons now for the Galaxy to miss out on the playoffs. I don't think they envisioned this, obviously, when they brought Zlatan in. They also spent a lot on trying to boost up their defense, specifically at center back, and it simply
didn't work.
It did. I mean, they conceded a shocking number of goals this season, 64 goals this season. I don't know.
It's unacceptable. Let's be honest, because let's have some real talk here. You just have to scrape in MLS, and they didn't even do that. They didn't even get
on a day where Real Salt Lake weren't even playing because of weird MLS math. They were sitting at home, and the Galaxy were basically the only team who were playing for something on this day that already knew what needed to go down to get what they needed.
When you've spent the money on Zlatan and he is producing, and you've spent money in other areas, it should be going to the last day. It shouldn't be like that. This is a team that is attractive to players, has got money, changed manager mid-season to make sure that they could, I guess, get that new manager bounce and kind of reverse their bad form. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, it really is. And I hope that this doesn't wind up being some sort of indictment on Zlatan, because
for people like me.
Well, because look, I know he's got people who adore him, but there's also people who kind of don't love what he represents, kind of like this, look at me, I'm this god.
And also there was people who didn't want it to work out because they felt the league was gone beyond parachuting in an aging star coming off the back of an injury to create buzz. Like, he delivered the goods.
Yes, he did. And
That's the bottom line.
To me, was in no way any sort of indictment. Like, if you want to look back on those types of things, you can talk about Gerrard with the Galaxy, but this is... this was just not. He's an MVP candidate and deserving one. This should not shade the experience that the Galaxy had with him as their talisman.
Well, no. Ibrahimovic understood how large LA was and how big the country was, and that he could be just as big in this league, whereas Gerrard came in and was astounded by the geography of this great nation.
Weird.
It'll never stop being amusing to me.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what happens with Zlatan now. My guess is that we've seen the last of him in MLS.
I would think so. I think he might want a swan song somewhere else, or he may want to maybe he stays with the Galaxy another season and tries to parlay this into the film role I feel he wants to get into. I do feel like he believes he's that kind of character. He is.
And he very well may be. But I think he needed some sort of, for lack of a better term, audition to show certain clubs in Europe, look, I still got it. And he did. If it was an audition, he passed with flying colors.
Yeah, he just needs to find a league with as much inept defending in Europe.
Wow, you can't help it. You can't help it. It's just in you. Meanwhile, the league's other big signing, Wayne Rooney, leads DC United not just to the postseason, which we knew, but to a home playoff game where they will face the Columbus Crew.
I know we spent the last podcast waxing lyrical about this, but this is exceptional. And I'm telling you, Andrew, they're going to take the mantra from the Red Sox in 2004 in the LCS. Why not us?
I thought the Red Sox mantra was the idiots.
Yeah, but during the playoff seasons, the pitcher, what was his name with the bleeding ankle?
Kurt Schilling.
Kurt Schilling, basically on the plane going back to New York, said, "Why not us?"
Yeah.
And it became their mantra. I'm not being facetious, but what's to stop DC United? They are blazing hot.
They certainly are, and now they get the home game, a stadium, their new stadium, which I'm sure no one there thought back in late June when they were bottom of the conference that we'd be sitting in this position now. And I just want to emphasize this, and I know we did say this last week on the podcast, as great as Wayne Rooney has been, and he really, truly has been, what Luciano Acosta, his emergence this season for DC United has he's been one of the great surprises of the year.
He's Rooney's legs. He's his assist maker. He's everything. He's fantastic. His movement is excellent, Andrew. It's the most impressive thing about his game.
Yeah. So in the end, they get to 51 points. And like I said, they'll host Columbus, who won thanks to Giassi Zardes, which we spoke about on the last podcast, where he got my man of the match.
The goal machine, Zardes.
I mean, this season he was among the most prolific goal scorers in all of MLS.
But what about his first touch, Andrew?
I know. We'll never, ever stop talking about his first touch.
I called it, though.
Is it possible that he's not a disaster like so many American soccer fans, like I feel like, are rooting for him to be? I don't totally get some of the venom that is spewed towards him. But all of a sudden, Columbus now, they get in the playoffs after a weird game where they knew essentially because Montreal lost and then a major weather delay for the Columbus match. So they basically knew the result of the Montreal match. And so they were kind of just playing for fun for the second half of that one. But still, they come in and do get into the postseason. That should be a fun game between DC and the Columbus Crew. And then finally, there's the Supporters' Shield. And incredibly, it goes to the New York Red Bulls after they won 1-0 and Atlanta got thrashed by Toronto 4-1. To me, the story is not Atlanta capitulating and losing to Toronto and letting their lead slip away after they kind of had a stranglehold on the Eastern Conference for, it felt like, most of the season. The story, to me, is the Red Bulls. And this is now 3 Supporter Shields in 6 years. I know how their fans feel about that. It's great. Yay, haha, we love it. And they were very happy. You could see this. They were great scenes. They were after they did win it. But we know what matters to them and that their priorities are in the right place. It's time for them to win MLS Cup to validate a lot of the success. But let's at least take a minute and appreciate what that club has been able to achieve with a manager change. I mean, you just talked about it. The Galaxy had a manager change. Did that really work for them? NYCFC had a midseason managerial change. Now, yes, they're going to the postseason, but they certainly didn't kick on after it. It's been a struggle for them. But the Red Bulls, like Jeff Carlisle told us on the podcast, they are a machine. It doesn't matter who they lose. Cahill, Henry, Dax, McCarty, Klestjan, glue guys like that, not just big headline guys. It doesn't matter. They're just Miazga. They're always great. And so I'm very, very interested to see what happens to them now in the playoffs. I
am so curious about them because you could argue, and probably hardened Red Bull fans would say, well, that's not true, but you could argue that this is not the best squad they've had to win of those 3 Supporter Shields. But it doesn't matter. They've got Bradley Wright Phillips, Kaku has come in and has done brilliant things. Tyler Adams, and they've got a goalkeeper who's a veteran who just gets, he's so important to them as well. I don't know what the problem was those years. I was in Red Bull Arena, was it 2 years ago for the second game against Columbus, and they just seemed to freeze on the big stage. Now, again, they came very close right at the end. There was this ball that rolled right past the post, and they could have had the goal that was going to send them through. But I'm just so curious as to what happens to them in the playoffs, and will it happen again?
Yeah, and look, you mentioned some of the names, obviously, that get talked about a lot, but I think for a second we've got to say something about their defending. Tim Parker's emergence, Kamar Lawrence, who's always been good, but now seems to have kind of, he's 26 now. He's like really hitting his prime, and I think you'd have to say he was one of the, if not the best fullbacks in the league this season. Aaron Long as well, doing a great job for them in defense. It's like a total team effort for them. There's not, right down to Luis Robles in net. There's not one specific element of that team that I would say, well, they win because of that. It is from top to bottom, from the manager all the way through this roster. I don't know. I can't say enough superlatives about them right now. I'm so impressed with them. And it's funny you say that this may not have even been their best team. JJ, they just set the points record. They just topped Toronto from last year, the greatest season in history. That record now belongs to the Red Bulls. It's an incredible story. It really is. I don't know. I just wonder. I'm kind of wish I could fast forward and know, okay, do they validate this? I'm almost nervous for them. It's going to be fascinating, I think, their storyline throughout the postseason. Yeah,
I'm kind of not fascinated. I'm kind of trepidatious about this, though.
I know.
What will they do if it just doesn't click again in the playoffs?
Fans, yeah, it feels like there's that nervous energy. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Only time will tell. I'm very excited about it. I'll tell you what. We're going to talk with Julian Gressel of Atlanta United FC a little bit later on in the podcast. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we pay tribute to one of the greatest shows in the history of American television, Arrested Development.
If you're a smoker, you know switching isn't easy. You've tried vapes and e-cigs. They just didn't deliver the satisfaction you expected. But Juul is different. It's not an e-cigarette. It's a vapor product that actually satisfies. Plus, Juul is simple to use, and there's no cigarette ash and no lingering odor. As a smoker, you expect a certain nicotine experience, right? Juul delivers. Give Juul a try. Check out JUUL.com/sports. Switch and be satisfied. Yes, you can do both. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Now the story of a wealthy family who lost everything, and the one son who had no choice but to keep them all together.
Kane finds the net. Aguero, he can win it. Oh! Salah's there. Hazard scores.
It's Arrested Development.
Oh, 15 years ago, this Friday, one of the greatest shows, one of our favorite shows of all time, premiered, Arrested Development. So here we go, JJ. We've each picked out 3 moments from the show that we're going to compare to English Premier League moments, or players, or things, or teams,
which will work. It's fine.
Of course it will. Just accept it, everyone. All right? Don't roll your eyes at it. Just enjoy it. All right?
All right.
I'm going to go first here, JJ. Oh, you can always tell a Milford man.
I shall be neither seen nor heard. Watch me.
You can always tell a Milford man.
That's right. Neither seen nor heard. You know who I give my Milford Man Academy award to?
Who's that?
Right now I give it to Romelu Lukaku. He, right now, has become the Premier League's Milford Man.
That seems harsh.
Yeah. He's now gone over 800 minutes without scoring a goal. And this past weekend, Mourinho took drastic measures and dropped him from the starting 11. Now, you can get away with being invisible for long stretches when you're someone like Shane Long or Sam Vokes. No offense to either of them. I'm making a point here that they're just kind of guys, but when you cost £75 million, a number, by the way, that could rise to £90 million, you cannot become a Milford man. And with other viable options up front like Rashford, who we saw over the weekend, and a very informed Anthony Martial, you have to wonder, will Lukaku continue to be neither seen nor heard? The weird thing is he's been in terrific form for Belgium. He's got 5 goals in his last 4 games for them. But right now for his club, he is completely unable to replicate that sort of form. He is a Milford man.
Yeah, that kind of... Yeah, I can buy into that one as well. The Belgian comparison is style of play issue. I definitely
Do you think that's it? Because people are...
But there's no plan or or real kind of interplay when United get the ball up the field. Often there isn't, apart from what they do impromptu. Whereas I feel with Belgium, not that it's all scripted, but they have players who move around and it's much more fluid.
You're right. Where's United's Hazard and De Bruyne? You know?
Fluid play.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm sure that certainly is a factor in it. He's probably frustrated. I kind of do feel bad for him.
And strikers do have these patches, even the best. And his record stands against anybody's since he was but a boy.
Yes.
My first Arrested Development is, I'm going to say it, Eddie Howe is the character Anne.
George Michael, I'd love for you to come with me when I cut the ribbon at the new house.
Oh, wow. Hey, can I bring Anne?
Who?
Anne. You know, she's the girl I'm kind of hanging out with.
I haven't met Anne.
Yes, you have.
Michael had met Anne.
Let her in. That's her right over there.
Oh, Anne. Yes.
Anne.
I know Anne. Hey, you.
So it doesn't matter what Anne does. Anne is the love of George Michael's life and Arrested Development. I'm sure Eddie Howe is the love of Bournemouth fans' lives. But to almost everybody else, she fades into the background to the point they forget about her or don't even know that they met her. And that is kind of the job Eddie Howe has done at Bournemouth. Bournemouth are probably going to fall away somewhat in the league table once they hit the big teams. They're currently in 6th position. But the style of play and the way his side have prospered in the Premier League relative to the size of the club is a tribute to the immense job he has done. And think about 2 historically big clubs who have changed manager in the last year. Arsenal and Everton, right? Mikel Arteta was ahead of Eddie Howe in terms of getting the Arsenal job. A guy who hasn't managed anywhere as the number one.
Yeah.
And Everton, who crave a style of play and an identity. Surely Eddie Howe was one of the guys once Watford had rebuffed the advances of Silva. That was the guy to go to, but they stuck and got Silva. Those jobs on paper at least would have been perfect for a manager like Eddie Howe, and yet the response is the same Anne gets on Arrested Development. Her?
I'm a big fan of the May and egg.
Oh, God.
Ugh.
Yeah, Eddie Howe definitely doesn't eat an egg that way.
Don't be such an Ann hog. Let's see. My next one, JJ. It's funny. You and I we're very much in line with one another's thinking. You talk about Eddie Howe. I talk about how there's a new daddy in town.
There's a new daddy in town. A disciplined daddy.
That's right, JJ. I went with Bournemouth. There's a new daddy in town at Bournemouth.
They're the disciplined daddy.
A disciplined daddy. Because, JJ, in the past, Bournemouth were always good for goals, but what kept them in the lower half of the table was that they were always good to concede them as well. For example, last season they finished 12th, which is respectable, but only 3 clubs conceded more than the 61 goals they allowed. Oof. And they were still 12th. That's right. There is a new daddy in town. A disciplined daddy. They've only conceded 12 times this season through 10 matches. Only Wolves, Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool, and City have conceded fewer. They've actually gone 3 straight without giving up a goal. Nathan Ake, Steve Cook, they've been stout in central defense. This past weekend, they actually went with a back 3 against Fulham, which they had not done this season. They've got versatile defenders with guys like Simon Francis, who was able to slot in to one of the central defenders for that back 3. Usually he plays fullback for him. They're showing great discipline in the back, more than they have in the past, and it's really the difference between the 12th that they were last year and the 6th that they are right now, just 1 back of Spurs for 5th. It's been an incredible turnaround at that position, and I put it at the feet of a more disciplined approach for Bournemouth this season.
Disciplined daddy.
A new daddy in town. Tobias Funke is one of, let's be honest, he's one of the great losers in the history of television.
He's one of the great comedic
he's unbelievable.
creations. When he got the hair plugs, oh my God.
Graft versus host.
Unbelievable. My next Arrested Development is Daniel Levy is Job when he takes over at Bluth Enterprises and alienates the staff by belittling workers based on what he earns versus their earnings.
The president has to worry about alienating the employees now.
In fact, Job had started to alienate some of his colleagues.
Worst that can happen is I could spill some on my $3,000 suit. Come on! Oh, hey. Yeah, the guy in the $4,000 suit is holding the elevator, but the guy doesn't make that in 3 months. Come on! Oh, why don't I just take a whiz through this $5,000 suit? Come on!
Come on. Now, I'm not for 1 second suggesting that Levy is running around Tottenham's training ground in a $5,000 suit taunting Dele Alli about his wages, but it's worth noting the following. The club's overall wage bill is still only 6th in the Premier League at £127 million sterling, and Levy himself jumped from £2.84 million sterling to more than £6 million sterling in salary for 16-17 published accounts at Spurs. So, Spurs' conservative player wage policy versus their rather generous remuneration package for their chief executive did put me in mind of good old Job. And today's report in The Independent from Jack Pitt-Brooke makes me wonder if Levy won't be uttering Job's classic phrase,
"I've made a huge mistake."
Tottenham Hotspur are set to borrow another £237 million sterling to cover the spiralling costs of their new stadium build. I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah. You're right.
It's always struck me that Daniel Levy is an important part of Spurs. Don't get me wrong, I don't denigrate what he's done, and particularly at times his transfer acumen and the way he's, led the club. But it is jarring to see him on that amount of money as a director. He's comfortably one of the best paid directors in the Premier League compared to the kind of more, how shall we put it, prudent, which is the kind word, way they've addressed player wages.
But is he, for them to be this good and have a wage bill like what you just said, the conclusion that you would draw from that is that he's good at his job. And if that's the case, it does make sense that he's highly paid for it. Would you not say that he's good in his role?
Well, how much is he making versus how much Harry Kane is making? Because Harry Kane has been very good in his role.
You're right. Harry Kane should be making more than probably anyone at the club.
Yeah, and Harry Kane has been very good in his role. But Harry Kane, this is only his latest contract. Harry Kane was on 100,000 a week for the longest time, which was, by market standards, very, very low compared to what he could have earned at Real Madrid for the same.
Now, with Dele Alli's extension, he now moves more into a position that you would expect players of that caliber to be making. I think he's gone over the 200,000 a week mark. I'll have to double check the exact specifics.
No, Spurs contracts are, any article you read about them, they are heavily bonused, and there's a lot of incentives in there. But I'm just saying, it's a lot of money for Daniel Levy to be earning, and the stadium as well.
That's fair. I'll tell you what, we are once again on a similar wavelength, because my final one here also pertains to Spurs. Here it is.
As I told my brother, the president, if we start construction on a second model home, we can be cutting this ribbon within 2 months.
And I said, that's why you're no longer president. 2 weeks. Let's do it in 2 weeks. Hey!
I'm sorry. Can we stop the music?
Oh, this new stadium. This damn new stadium. It felt like they wanted it done in 2 weeks, but that was just never going to be the reality. Last Friday, Spurs announced a 4th delay on the opening of the new White Hart Lane. The earliest they can move into it now is mid-January. Here was part of Daniel Levy's statement. He said, "I wish I was able to confirm an exact opening date and fixture. However, in light of factors completely outside of our control, contractors missing deadlines, and possible future unforeseen issues, we are naturally being cautious in respect of our timetable for our test events and official opening game." This comes on the heels of a report in the Construction News of a whistleblower. I don't know how we missed this, by the way. This was back in September. A whistleblower revealing stories of stadium workers getting drunk and snorting coke on the job site.
No, we did have it. We mentioned it. It was the Construction News article.
Okay.
But I refused to talk about the salacious stuff on it because, I'm not advocating the use of drugs to young people.
Who's advocating it? Is that what you're implying?
I'm kidding.
You can walk right out of here.
I'm kidding. I literally said I'm not going to, because you were like rolling your eyes at me in studio. You were like, oh, please don't go through all the salacious stuff. You were
what? I don't remember any of that conversation.
And so all I talked about was how the main contractor was not talking to all the other subcontractors, and things were happening, like air conditioning was going in only to be realised it had to be ripped out again because something else wasn't finished.
Stuff that you were too cowardly to reference.
Don't call me a coward.
Here's what they said. This is from the whistleblower. Quote, "I've not worked on a site like that in a long time," a source told Construction News. "There were people off their heads drinking cans first thing in the morning before going onto site and snorting coke in the toilets." Okay.
Oh, can you imagine turning up? A guy with a power drill. Spurs are on the way to Wembley. Sun and the sun, do it again.
Mace is the construction firm in charge of the project.
Doing a fine job.
They responded to the story with a statement of their own. They said, "Mace strongly refutes the image of our project painted by these anonymous allegations," said the company spokesman. "The health, safety, and well-being of everybody is and has always been a core value at Mace, and any suggestion that our rigorous standards around best practice or drugs and alcohol had been broken would be taken extremely seriously. We carry out regular random drug and alcohol testing to ensure that our rules are enforced throughout our supply chain. Any concerns about specific health and safety risks should have been flagged to Mace health and safety staff on the project." So they don't necessarily deny it.
No, they don't deny it.
They do.
It's like saying
they say we refute the image of our project painted by these anonymous allegations, but they don't say they're not true.
No, exactly.
This is a disaster.
It's like
Let's be honest.
It's like me being absolutely drunk one night. You go home to Amanda and say it, and then Amanda goes to me, "I heard you were very drunk." Well, I don't like the image that Andrew has painted of me.
Right. I mean, this, to me, like, I was watching that clip of the model home construction, and when you actually watch the episode, you know, the whole thing falls apart. Buster is trying to injure himself on purpose so he doesn't have to go into the army, and he's trying to have, like, walls of the house fall on him. That is the new White Hart Lane right now. Until I see this place up and running and functioning, I just, like, it's become just a joke to me, which is sad, which really is sad. What do you got for your last one here?
My last one is that Mrs. Featherbottom is indeed Sam Allardyce. So, apart from the idea, I like thinking of Big Sam as a Tobias Funke dressed in drag, there is one key component that Tobias and Big Sam share, and that is a kind of a delusion. Tobias is convinced he is an actor, and he will be a great actor. And Big Sam is convinced the only thing dividing him and the top managers is the fact his name is Allardyce and not Allardici. We've heard him opine on Busquets lately, etc. In any event, the next time a club needs help cleaning up a potential relegation mess, maybe Mrs. Featherbottom might suddenly be back in business.
Lindsay, the place looks fantastic. Would you pay somebody to do this?
Oh, I've no need for payment. The love of a family is more than enough.
I'm sorry, this is Mrs. Featherbottom.
From Blackstool. I'm charmed, I'm sure. Back to work.
Basically, Tobias reviews, or what does he do?
It's a reimagining of Mary Poppins and Mrs. Doubtfire combined into one really uncomfortable sort of babysitter / house cleaner.
Big Sam.
You educate me again between the link here?
The link is that Tobias thinks he's such a wonderful actor that he can fool his family.
Wow.
And come back into the house. And Big Sam thinks that the only reason, it's delusion, Andrew, basically, the only reason he's not considered a top manager is because he's not foreign.
Italian.
Allardici.
Right. That's pretty good. Well crafted.
I mean, look, none of these work, but
how dare you?
You've got to try and make them work.
So there you go. That is our tribute to Arrested Development.
Now the story of a wealthy family who lost everything, and the one son who had no choice but to keep them all together.
Kane finds the net. Aguero, he can win it. Oh! Salah's there. Hazard scores.
It's Arrested Development.
And if you liked any or all of that, at CO Soccer Pod. Tweet at us, caughtoffsidepod@gmail.com, or leave a lovely review on iTunes with many stars, or even a bad review, but just leave us a review.
Nah. You're soliciting bad reviews.
I am not.
It's an interesting tack to take. I would say if you've never seen Arrested Development, it's a very bingeable show. One episode just kind of...
It's bizarre, but it's funny.
I always wondered... I really think that the reason... Had Netflix existed when it originally aired, I think it would have been one of the sensations of all time. Now, it did win the Emmy for Best Comedy, even though its ratings were horrible. And I think the problem with that show was in a pre-DVR Netflix world, each episode, like if you missed a couple episodes of that show, you missed a lot. Like they all were linked. They all had something to do with, like it was one long story basically throughout.
Also as well, there's a lot of shows out there that it's fringe comedy. It's alternative comedy.
Yes, although it is a laugh out loud.
It is
show.
laugh out loud, but it's not like a Mike on Molly. Or it's not your classic American sitcom, is what I'm saying.
Bazinga.
Ugh.
So there you go. I hope you all enjoyed that. I know I did. That was very fun. Mailbag.
Mail busy. Kunal drops us an email from India, and he dropped it last week. And Kunal actually predicted that the Wembley surface will be in poor shape after the NFL games, and is wondering, Andrew, should Spurs suffer any kind of punishment for this?
What, like a points deduction? What's he implying?
Punishment? I don't know. He didn't go into specifics.
No. Is anyone even suggesting that?
I mean, it was bad. It was a bad look for the league. I would charge Tottenham.
What is precedent?
I would charge Spurs with bringing the game into disrepute.
So is this like
Sterling to the 20?
It was like watching Minnesota United FC last season.
It was like watching.
It was awful.
On Twitter, I said it's the Tottenham Londoners versus the Manchester Canal men in the NPSL, played on a high school field. Shocking.
Yeah, it was kind of embarrassing.
We need to get the discipline daddy out for Spurs. Martin in Colorado Springs. I write this despite Andrew Gundling not knowing who a seminal artist like Ian Curtis and Joy Division are, and hearing that it was me, not Love, who wanted to tear us apart. Don't bother telling that wordplay to Gundling. He obviously won't understand it, JJ.
I'm just not on your level.
But you did listen to the songs I gave you.
So you sent me 4 songs. I went back and I listened to them. Look, I don't know how to say this without further embarrassing myself. So here's what I will say. I'm not rushing out to buy the album. I'd say that they were fine. What I would tell you is it's very hard for me to judge it now. I can acknowledge that if that didn't exist before, they were the first to kind of come up with that idea, then great, awesome, tremendous. But I don't know. I didn't love it.
Didn't do it for you.
It was fine. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was fine. I'm sorry. I know.
Anyway,
I don't want to talk about this anymore because people have just they've had it.
I don't know. They really like Joy Division. I can't believe you hadn't heard Love Will Tear Us Apart before.
I will say, in my defense, multiple people who are, I guess, too ashamed to come clean to you because of how you judge everyone have told me that they also have not heard of that band.
Okay.
Look, I'm not saying I'm right to have not heard of them, but I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say to make it up to everyone.
Well, Martin said, it got me thinking about musicians who love football and that Bob Marley was buried with a soccer ball. If you guys had to be buried with one piece of soccer memorabilia, what would you take?
Well, I guess if you're buried with it, it means that it should have some sort of meaning to you, not just like something cool. Like I think something random and cool. I feel like maybe the red card that Zidane was shown after the headbutting in the World Cup final. Like, what a cool piece of soccer memorabilia.
Or the jersey he wore.
All right, I was going, yeah, okay, fine. But if it has to mean something to you, look, as an American soccer fan, I would say maybe the cleat that Donovan scored against Algeria with.
I was thinking maybe the ball that Jason McAteer scored for Ireland against Holland. I would like that. Have that ball beside me. As a youngster, I always had a ball in my hand.
I would want to maybe could we bottle some of the water around the Trinidad pitch?
Oh my God! Then you'd rise. That's haunted. You'd rise from the dead. Oh my God! Henry Hakamaki, just want to throw out an interesting tidbit of info to you, since I heard JJ say in this last pod that financial fair play seems pretty easy to get around in regards to PSG. So Henry sent us a long involved email, but the gist is that yes, financial fair play seems to be able to be bypassed by the big clubs, but he laid out how his beloved Rubin Kazan got hit very hard when they breached financial fair play. It was pretty interesting. People should look into the Rubin Kazan fines. Yeah, I don't feel.
I got nothing for you. I'll be honest.
Yeah, well, financial fair play is just like
I'm so bored right now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, okay.
I'm not. I don't mean to belittle his. I'm sure that was a bad moment for them, but I don't know. I don't know how. Do people find financial fair play interesting?
If it hurts your club, you definitely do.
Course,
and then you see other teams flaunting it. Steve Smith. If you're going to integrate goal-scoring moments and music into the pod after breaks, surely Tony Watt's goal for Celtic, the winner versus Barcelona, is worth a mention. I went back and listened to it, and with that great crowd roar, that
Scottish lungs,
unbelievable. Yeah, maybe we'll look into that. James Skinner in Leicester. I don't think it can be overstated how loved Vichai and his family are by Leicester fans. They are the most generous people you could ever wish for to own a football club. No expenses being spared on field or off. It should be noted that they have been extremely generous to local hospitals and charities without ever seeking publicity for it. As I write this on Saturday night, nothing is yet confirmed, but it's probably safe to assume that the owner was aboard his own helicopter. Whilst I hope for a miracle, I cannot help but fear the worst, and I'm not ashamed to say I've shed more than one tear. If our worst fears are confirmed, then thank you simply doesn't do it justice to how grateful we are to him, and we will miss Vichai. He wasn't born into Leicester fandom, but he has become one of our own and clearly proud of it. So, that was from James. And if I could direct other people towards the other podcast we did this week, where we talked to Andy May, who is a Leicester City supporter and obviously broadcaster for BT Sports. We talk more about it. In a similar vein, Anne emails in light of what's happened in Leicester and in Pittsburgh. I'm from just north of Philly, like Andrew. I just want to reach out and say thank you for what you do. Your podcast really makes me laugh and think about football and life. I really enjoy it. Yes, I already rated it on iTunes and left a stellar comment, and I look forward to it each week. And you know what? Usually I dismiss an email like that just saying, look, what do we do or whatever. But that weekend was just so awful on many levels. You're better throwing yourself in. If you enjoy our podcast and it helps take your mind off the awfulness in the world at times, why
and
not?
You're really going to hate our election coverage.
Yeah. Thankfully, we will not have to do that. Bob Duggan, just two quick things on your Godfather references, and congrats on your Godfather, sir, to me. There is no such thing as too many Godfather references. Ignore Andrew and go to the mattresses. Oh, I love it. You know what going to the mattresses is?
Of course. I've seen The Godfather like 1,000 times.
Have you?
Because I haven't heard of Joy Division, now that means I don't know anything about any realm of culture.
You haven't seen Terminator 1 or 2. Here's one free Godfather reference you can save for the presumably near future. Lopetegui sleeps with the fishes.
Yeah.
I'm picturing Florentino Perez saying this to Sergio Ramos as he hands him a fish wrapped in a suit jacket and explaining it's a Madridista message. Thanks as always for the great podding. You're welcome. Andrew Tucci, big fan of the pod. With the MLS playoffs happening now, I've heard a lot of talk about the MLS homegrown player. Could you all explain the significance of this rule and what it means? Go Reds. It's basically a route for local youth players to get to the first team of an MLS club that is in their locale and outside of the MLS draft. So where players can be drafted by any team regardless of their location. So there are conditions. All players must reside in a team's home territory for at least 1 year prior to being added to the team's homegrown player list. Players must be added to an MLS team's homegrown player list prior to entering a 4-year college, but can maintain their homegrown player status during the college years if registered before entering that institution. It's just a way of hoovering up local talent. Noah Faust Robinson chimes in from Canada.
Oh.
Hey, Andrew and JJ. Massive fan here listening from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Firstly, keep up the incredible work. Yours is a unique pod of the highest quality, and I will continue to push it on Annie and all loving friends I have. Push it. I imagine he has them in a headlock, and he's like, just listen to it, all right? I just wanted to take a moment to give some love to my boy, Alphonso Davies. The kid was simply incredible in his send-off game on Sunday, and he has been the definition of class for the Whitecaps and their fans ever since securing his deal to go abroad with Bayern. I'm not ashamed to admit that as someone born in the decade following Canada's only World Cup appearance in '86, I had long given up on ever seeing my country play truly meaningful football again. However, the emergence of Davies and the likes of Balou Tabla and Jonathan David playing for Barcelona and Ghent, as well as the success of the United bid for 2026, has me feeling hopeful and energised about the state of football in my country for the first time I can remember. We'll miss Fonzie dearly on the West Coast. That's a great nickname, Fonzie. Yeah. But I'm so excited to see a Canadian not named Junior Hoylett or Simeon Jackson play football in a top European league. His time will come sooner rather than later. Thank you for your time and good humour. That's the mailbag.
That's very good. 17 he is. Paul Stalteri was Canadian, right?
Yeah. And Paul Pescasolido.
Yeah?
Yep.
Interesting.
Canadian. It is indeed Canada's fault.
That is your mailbag. At CO Soccer Pod on Twitter, caughtoffsidepod@gmail.com. What to watch for? We'll get to Julian Gressel in just a moment. Carabao Cup. Wednesday, 3:45, West Ham and Tottenham. Feels like they just played because they did. Also, Wednesday at 3:45, Arsenal and Blackpool. And then, JJ, guess what else we have Wednesday at 3:45?
Lampard and Gerrard, we're keeping an eye on you.
The Lampard half. Obviously, Derby County would be drawn against Chelsea. Because why not?
And then Chelsea did the classy thing and allowed Mason Mount to play in this one.
Classy. So I am very curious to see how that pans out. I'm sure Frank Lampard did not think that this early on in his managerial career he'd be facing the club that he loves. We all remember I certainly remember his lack of celebrating at Manchester City when he scored against Chelsea. What will he do if he actually knocks his beloved Chelsea out of a cup as manager of another club? I feel like he won't be able to take the inner guilt.
He will return as a hero, though. It's going to be,
I'm sure he will,
awesome for him. Seriously. Standing ovation.
Yeah.
And if his team put in a halfway decent performance, it's going to be just a beautiful moment. This is a win-win for him.
Certainly. EPL Saturday, 11 a.m., Cardiff City and Leicester City. That game will go ahead. There was some talk that maybe it wasn't going to be played because of the tragedy that occurred. This is in Wales, and Leicester will travel for it, and they will play their first game since the passing of their chairman, Saturday, 11 a.m. Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Arsenal and Liverpool. This is an interesting one. Arsenal coming off the 2-2 draw against Crystal Palace. Liverpool continuing to look pretty good.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because of the comments of Paul Merson, who took my comments about them giving up a lot of chances to a completely different level. He said prior to the weekend, Liverpool or somebody like that will rip them apart.
Liverpool would rip
Arsenal apart. Yeah, he was very strong on that.
Wow. I don't know.
I think
I would pick Liverpool to win, but you're going to the Emirates.
We have ripped them apart in the last few years we've had some big wins over them, but at the same time, like last season, the 3-3, I mean, that was an entertaining game. I think it's going to be a ding-dong battle.
Yeah, and then Sunday, 11 a.m., Chelsea and Crystal Palace, which I was going to say neutral. I don't know about that. I'll probably be actively rooting against Chelsea. But Hazard, Zaha in the same game. I think right now, I would say for me personally, the two most exciting players to watch in the league. That probably is my must-see game of the week. Obviously, Arsenal, Liverpool have the star power, but I don't know. I'm excited to watch those two guys go in that game. And then MLS, the playoffs, the knockout round. Wednesday, 7 p.m. It gets underway. Number 3, NYCFC against the 6th seed Philadelphia Union. They played last weekend.
Yes.
NYCFC won that game 3-1. I don't know if the score quite paints the picture of how that game went. if you look at expected goals, they were pretty much the same for both clubs. But the fact that NYCFC won the game is huge because they've been, for whatever flaws they've had this season and struggles they've had late in the season, they have been very good at home. 12-1-4 at home at Yankee Stadium. They know their dimensions. They're comfortable playing there. For the Union, it's going to be difficult. It certainly is. And did you see Corey Burke had to be restrained from going after one of his own teammates at halftime last weekend?
It's not good.
No, yeah. Jim Curtin says he hopes that Burke learns from it.
Yeah, don't go after your teammates.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's one thing. Things happen. Guys yell at each other, but to be restrained in front of everyone, I don't know. I don't want to say that that's the way I feel now going into this game for the Union. Is nervous because of that, but didn't leave you with the best taste in your mouth in the last weekend of the season.
Well, I'll be there to break up any nonsense.
Wow,
I will be in Yankee Stadium.
Oh, you gotta let us know how it goes.
I shall.
Wednesday, 9:30, FC Dallas and the Portland Timbers. Seemed like FC Dallas was just battling for that number 1 seed not so long ago. Now they dropped to 4. That's kind of the story in the West this season with what that bottleneck was near the top. Thursday at 8 o'clock, DC United and the Columbus Crew. I think that's your ESPN game. Should be fun. Wayne Rooney in the MLS postseason. And then Thursday, 10:30, LAFC and Real Salt Lake. I wonder how many soccer MLS fans thought that LAFC would be the Los Angeles representation in the postseason this year. It would have been something if the Galaxy had gotten in and those two played in a knockout game at the new LAFC stadium. But it will be Mike Petke's Crew, Real Salt Lake. That will be there.
And the quotable Petke came out with this one. I want to pick people who I'll go to battle with. Obviously, this is not battle. In a sporting context, I'm talking about. They have to have qualities on the ball as well. My wife, I'd go to battle with any day, but I'm not going to put her out against LAFC. So Petke's wife will not start for Real Salt Lake.
So that has been revealed. One team that is in the postseason but is not in action this weekend because they were a top 2 seed, that is Atlanta United FC. We're very lucky right now to be joined by a member of that team. He was MLS's Rookie of the Year last season. He is one of the emerging rising stars in the league. Midfielder for Atlanta, Julian Gressel on the program now. Julian, what's up, man?
How are you guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're good. I guess before we get into the soccer element of this, I was reading that you're like one of the best golfers, amateur golfers in the country. Is that right? You were named MLS's best golfer by was it Forbes or something?
How would they even know that?
Yeah, it seems hard to quantify.
I think it was Golf Digest.
Well, they would know.
I mean, they are the preeminent authority on golf.
I guess so. Yeah, I think they just reached out to Atlanta and they asked me what my handicap was and all that, and then they kind of came up with a list that way. And it was a cool little accomplishment there for me.
And you're also a massive Boston sports fan. You just that's what. Look, this is what I read as well.
Yeah, I am. I think I went to school in Providence, which is not too far from Boston, and my fiance, she is from Boston, so I kind of had to adopt it because her dad is a huge fan of every Boston sport. So she kind of turned me into a Boston fan, and obviously just being close to the region made me like the Patriots, the Celtics, the Red Sox, and it's not a bad town to be a fan of, to be honest with you.
No, it's ridiculous, quite frankly. They can't stop winning. I guess you're still basking in the glory of the World Series.
Yeah, no, it was a good World Series. It was fun to watch that. That final game for them to close it out after our not so great game against Toronto.
Also, you're the proud owner, I would say, of probably one of the better nicknames that I've come across in MLS with Gresselmania. Now, I'm curious because you come from Germany. Like, is WrestleMania, the WWE, is that a thing?
That's a ridiculous. Of course it is.
I don't.
Germans imbibe American culture. Isn't that right, Julian?
It is. Yeah, it is. Of course it is a thing. I actually used to watch wrestling when I was a little kid. I was trying to sneak in and watch it while my mom wasn't watching what I was watching. It's a thing over there. And, the nickname is awesome, I think. It's been something that the fans have created for me really since I stepped foot on the field here. And yeah, it's just fun. And a cool thing.
Along those lines, with the fans in Atlanta, it really has become one of the great stories in MLS since the inception of the club. Atlanta, I would say, before Atlanta United FC's existence, was not necessarily known as the best pro sports town. It's always been an amazing college sports city, but pro sports, people sometimes question the passion of the fan base. With the turnout and just the support that you guys get from that fan base, has it been surprising to you? What has it been like?
I mean, I didn't really know what to expect, just because I'm really so new to Atlanta, or I was so new to Atlanta before I got here, and kind of going through the draft, you never really know where you end up, so you can't really know everything about every city where you could possibly go, because that's just too much. So I was just, keeping an open mind once I first got here. You guys see it, it's been unbelievable. It's been a lot of fun. The way the fans have really helped create this unique culture and atmosphere within the club and then within our locker room. Even it's been nothing but incredible, and really credit to all the fans that really are so passionate and are so Atlanta United diehards.
Julian, I was looking at an interview you did with Atlanta United's social media or YouTube last year, and it was one of those quick 3-minute interviews where you're not expecting a lot of depth, but you said something really interesting. If we could go back in time to Germany, you talked in the interview about the impact your parents' divorce had on you as a 16-year-old, and it was around that same time where you left the academy in Germany. How did those two things kind of come together, and did they shape where you're at now at Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, those are pretty big things that happened in my life when I was I was 15 when I got denied of that academy spot. I got kind of released from that academy team, and then a year later, my parents get divorced, and I actually decided to step over to the U.S. and do an exchange year. So I matured really, really quick in that time frame. You kind of had to. I was the oldest brother. I had two younger brothers that didn't really know what was going on. Obviously, within our house, with my parents' divorce and everything, and those things they just shape you and kind of stick with you for a long time. Where I want to say I'm pretty mature. I'm older than what I am on paper. I think from a maturity level, and I've kind of always been like that ever since kind of those experiences back at home. It's helped me so much. I can't really say it enough that even on the field, like things like playing all these different positions, I still think that's those experiences are part of what has shaped me into the player I am on the field, and obviously the person I became as well.
Was there ever a time where you questioned doing this, or was soccer kind of always like the place you went to get away from whatever other stresses were going on?
It was usually always the thing that I turned to. I obviously when I was younger I played multiple sports, and there was a time where I had to choose a sport, and then there was always going to be soccer. There wasn't ever going to be another sport really in my life. Obviously after that had happened in the academy where I wasn't wanted anymore, and I kind of reevaluated all of that a bit, but I found the fun again in the sport. I had a lot of fun with playing with some of my really close friends back home, and kind of just staying connected to the game that way, even though it wasn't as competitive or it wasn't as goal driven as it was before. And then I also picked up golf, which I still play now, which helps me a lot to get away from even soccer, to kind of just clear the mind, and you do other things like, the biggest thing that probably came out of all that is that, I was very, very, driven in order to become a great human being, in a sense where I wanted to get a bachelor's degree and I wanted to study and all that. Just to be ready for life, in case nothing would ever happen with my soccer aspirations.
Julian, we'll get back to the current moment where you're just lighting up the MLS and having another brilliant season with 12 assists and 4 goals. But is the ultimate end game of this adventure in America to return to Germany, set foot on a Bundesliga pitch, and in some sense right some wrongs? Prove to people that you are good enough? Is that the ultimate aim here?
I don't know what the ultimate game is. What the ultimate goal is for me. I mean, there's a certain dream still within me that I grew up in Germany and I've watched the Bundesliga week in, week out, and I was a diehard fan myself. And to be able to walk on a pitch and on a Saturday afternoon at 3:30 in a Bundesliga stadium would be definitely a dream come true. And I can't really say that's not in my thoughts. So it definitely is, and it would be amazing if that were to happen. But I also I absolutely love it in Atlanta, and it would be really hard to kind of just give this all away here and kind of turn this down. Just because it's been so much fun here, and the U.S. has obviously grown a lot in soccer. I think we've helped quite a bit here in Atlanta to get the sport to where it is now, and even get it developing further. But I kind of just have to see what comes along the way. I'm always going to try and be the best possible player I can be, and then kind of develop my game in that sense. But we'll just kind of have to see what comes around and where I then end up. And I think those goals and achievements and all these things that just come along the way, and they also develop. And it's always a path. There's never really just one end goal that I have. I mean, obviously, as a soccer player, what do you want to play for? You want to play for in the World Cup. You want to play for your country and all those things. And but I also know what I have here, and I don't necessarily need to give that away. Just because it's been such an incredible ride here and so much fun to be a part of this club and this city.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that club and that city right now. Of course, it was an amazing season for you guys, but with the way it ended, I don't know, something tells me you guys have a bit of a chip on your shoulder heading into the postseason. I mean, what's the feeling like through the team right now, having fallen a little bit short of that supporter shield?
I mean, it's still really early after the game, but at the same time, I think today we came back in. We had yesterday off. Today we came back in and had a pretty good chat with some of the guys. Tata's obviously said a few words, and I think we're at a point where we really, we kind of have to move past it. We have to forget about the last 34 games because this is, a new season, and we all start from scratch. There's no goal differential, there's no wins, no losses, nothing. It just depends on the matchup, and then you have 180 minutes in order to advance. So we're really just focusing on that, trying to turn the page really quick. Obviously take the right lessons with us, and then just go out there and win a couple soccer games in order to advance.
Do you resent Tata Martino for announcing his departure at such a crucial part of the season? No, not at all. I don't think it had any effect on the way we played or the way that the club, the way we behaved on the field, the way we trained or anything. I don't think it played any role in that leading up to Toronto. I don't think so at all. Was it even like? I wouldn't ask if it was a distraction because I'm sure that you would all say that it was not. But was it even a topic of conversation within the team? Is it a thing that guys were aware of? I'm just curious about that. Yeah, I think you're definitely aware of it. I mean, the more rumors, come out, and the more you're like thinking, there must be something right about these rumors. But obviously, we didn't really want to obviously, know for sure until he actually tells us. I think we've kind of earned that respect throughout the year of how we have played and stuff. So it's nothing we paid too much attention to, but you're definitely aware of it. I mean, we have some TVs in the locker room and in the training facility where ESPN runs some ESPN Deportes, and they report it here and there, so you just read it just randomly at lunch sometime or whatever. But, we kind of knew that he was going to tell us sooner or later. He did decide to tell us after that Chicago game, and that was really it. It was a meeting for 5 minutes. Where we went to training immediately after, and nobody really talked about it again after. Julian, day to day, how good a coach is Tata Martino? What makes him special? His tactical ideas are unbelievable. The way he approaches the game, the way he sees the game, and the way he wants to impose his style on the field is
something unique. I think he's a coach that sacrifices a lot, that wants to win no matter what, and that it tries to instill that in his players. He tries and show that every single day when we step on the pitch with him. In training, even if it's just a little regen soccer tennis session. He always tells us, "You guys have to win this. There's always a reward for the winner." So it's always competitive. But like I said, his tactical mind, the way he sees the game from the sideline, and his even in-game adjustments are pretty amazing.
Julian, the way last season ended, I imagine it was bitterly disappointing for you guys. Coming into this postseason, is that something that fuels you, or is that something that you've just kind of like blocked out of your memories altogether?
It's definitely something I think that fuels us. I think we've played a pretty good game last year against Columbus in that knockout round. Now we actually don't find ourselves in that position. We already, are one round further, where it's 2 games now. So it's a bit of a different situation, but it definitely fuels me, especially after that, Toronto game as well. Where you really have a chance to win a trophy in 90 minutes, and you come up shy. You don't get it. I'm itching to kind of get out there and then compete again. And it's kind of like a little second chance for a trophy for us. Where we just have 5 more games. In order to be able to get that first trophy for this great club and great fan base.
Julian, you're viewed as a provider, really, and I suppose the stats bear that out, and maybe not so much a goal scorer, but I'm just guessing, and you can disagree with me, is the volleyed goal you scored against Real Salt Lake your favourite goal that you've scored?
It's up there. I think I've scored a few good ones here in Atlanta. I think I just remember the one against Philly last year, because that ultimately led to the clinching of the playoffs for us. So that was just a cool goal to score in that moment. And but yeah, that volley goal was definitely a nice goal. That felt good coming off the foot.
I can imagine it did, and imagine in a team like Atlanta where one guy kind of dominates the goal scoring, it's just nice to score it all. Yeah,
of course. I mean, nothing to take away from Joseph. He's been incredible and everything, but obviously the more we can contribute, the easier his life gets as well, So it's a mutual benefit there.
JJ and I actually, while we're on the topic of your favorite goal, we kind of debate all the time on this podcast of what is like the prettiest goal you can score. Are you somebody who prefers like a mazy Leo Messi type of run that he kind of then slips past the keeper? Or are you a guy who prefers just like blasting one from 30 yards out? What's the preferable great goal for you?
It's a volley off the crossbar.
That's it?
That's a good question. I think there's obviously those 2 very, very different goals, but there's a really cool art in dribbling past 6 guys and then just dribbling around the keeper and then just laying it in. But sometimes you also need that 30-yard strike, like Tito has had a few times for us, for example. Those are goals that are very low probability goals, so they usually count more often. But I mean, I love watching Messi and or even Miguel on their own. He does kind of similar things where he just drifts by defenders so easy. Where it's fun to watch that, and I think I prefer a goal like that.
All right, last one for me, and this is kind of pitting soccer against golf. What would be the cooler moment for you? Stepping up to the penalty spot for like a key, like Champions League moment against Manuel Neuer, or like the Masters being in like a final day pairing with Tiger Woods?
Ooh, that's a really tough question.
That's what you get here. These are the tough questions.
Well, here's the thing.
He's Champions League final.
Yeah.
I think I would take the Champions League final.
Of course. And also you're German and it's a penalty or maybe even a penalty shootout and you don't miss.
Yeah. Well, but against Columbus, that's something else. But hopefully this year I won't, yes.
Well, good stuff, man. You guys have been so fun to watch this season, and you specifically as well. We will be keenly keeping an eye on Atlanta throughout the postseason, and maybe we'll be able to catch up with you again sometime soon. Thanks so much, Julian.
Thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate it.
Our thanks to Julian Gressel. Atlanta United FC still awaiting who their opponent will be.
Yeah, so how's your interview gone for the Golf Channel? God, it was just golf with you.
I said that he was named the best MLS golfer by a publication,
right.
And I asked him if he would rather take a penalty against Neuer or play in a pairing with Tiger.
I don't know, man.
What's the matter with you?
Are you into golf? Is golf
no. You've known me for years. When have you ever heard me golf guy? Am I golf guy? Like I stand here and just my short game. Pretend to take swings. I hate the guy in the office.
You came in dressed the other day like Payne Stewart. So
yeah, I've got lots of knickers in my closet.
Yeah, and the flat cap and the whole thing.
Well, hey, this was a lot of fun. I hope everybody enjoyed hearing from Julian Gressel. I hope everybody enjoyed our Arrested Development tribute. Lots of soccer action coming up midweek, MLS postseason. Here we go. We've been saying all year, it's all about the playoffs. Just get to the playoffs. Well,
it is true.
We're here. It's happening. We're in it now. This was fun, my friend. To you, I say...
Take you later, fun boy.
See ya.
Take care.
You've been listening to the Caught Offside Soccer Podcast.